Welcome to Sports Management Podcast, where you will hear interesting sports management professionals share their stories, experiences, and passion for the sports management industry. I am your host, Marcus Philipson. Welcome to episode 128 of Sports Management Podcast. This is the last episode of 2023. It's been a great year for me and for the podcast, and I want to take this opportunity to thank you all so much for tuning in every week and supporting the show. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the show and give it an honest review. It really is the best way to grow the podcast even more. I have some huge names already locked in for 2024, so subscribe and you will be the first to know about it. Now, today's guest is Peter Sibner, the president for Everysport Media Group North America and Eliteprospects.com. Eliteprospects is a site where over 1 million hockey players can find their career stats, and it has become a vital tool for scouts, teams, and leagues to recruit and find new talent. We discussed Peter's journey from a small town in Sweden to Tampa, the evolution of Elite Prospects, the monetization model, his projections for the Junior World Cup, the differences in working in United States versus Sweden, what 5 things he buys in an emergency, being a neighbor with Mick Jagger, being a generalist rather than a specialist, and much more. Peter Sibner, welcome to Sports Management Podcast.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's my pleasure to have you on the podcast. For those who might not know who you are the president for Everysport Media Group in North America and also responsible for Eliteprospect.com. So how does a guy from a small town in Sweden go from being an insurance sales guy to working in hockey in Florida?
Yeah, I had there were a couple of jobs in between. So, no, but hockey has always been my passion ever since I grew up in Riddarholms Ishall, basically surrounded by the game at all times. I've always loved hockey. I never turned into much of a hockey player, but my passion for the sport was always really high. And I really don't know, to be honest. I sort of slipped into Everysport Media Group 12 years ago. At the time, I had been working in management consulting. I was working in recruitment and staffing at the time. And I started writing hockey columns for one of our hockey websites back then, just a volunteer gig, just because I've always loved writing. I worked as a journalist when I was in my teens. And, media and hockey was always just 2 big passions of mine. So, one thing led to another, and before I knew it, I was running Elite Prospects and Hockeysverige.se at the time. So got me into Everysport Media Group, a pretty small publishing company back then, but I instantly saw the potential for Elite Prospects, obviously a huge international potential, and that's what I've been working ever since to realize. And here we are. 5 years ago, it took me all the way to the United States. We needed an office over here, boots on the ground, and I picked Tampa because Florida is an emerging hockey market.
Yeah, I'm sure there are people who doesn't know what is Elite Prospect. If you are into hockey, you know what it is. But for those who might be interested in other sports, can you just give a brief what is?
It's the world's largest database for hockey players. We have over 1 million hockey players in our database. Some of them a lot of them are retired and expired and dead by now, but a lot of them are still active. And it's basically, it's an encyclopedia of hockey. It's kind of like the IMDb or the Wikipedia for hockey, if you will. 1 million hockey players in the database. We start adding hockey players who play at, basically any level, any organized level of hockey. You will likely get added to Elite Prospects when you're about 14 or 15 years old. And then we track your entire career until you retire, basically. So whether you play U16 hockey somewhere in Sweden, or if you play in the NHL, our goal is to have your entire career profile.
And I mean, it's become such an important tool, right? Because in the beginning, it started small, obviously, as everything is doing more or less. And now, I mean, it's the ground for scouting players from other markets. You're checking, their stats on Elite Prospect before you might bring them over to your team. So it's become really valuable for many different people.
Yeah, definitely. And it didn't start out as a statistical database at all. Johan Nilsson, who is still with us, who is still running the database, he started the website while he was still in high school back in Kalmar in 1999. And originally it was just a website that covered, had articles on Swedish hockey prospects in English for an international audience. And, those were the days where HF Boards was kind of the big chat forum for hockey. That was way before social media or anything. And well, Johan was able to put together quite the following, and eventually he started adding statistics from Swedish prospects playing in the Swedish leagues, and then it kind of just snowballed from there, and more volunteers reached out to Johan wanting to help out with a database. He got more scouting reports coming in, and about 5-6 years after he started, it was all statistics and no articles. Now we have sort of gotten back into the content swing of things again. I mean, we provide hundreds of scouting reports on top prospects every year. We put out our own draft guide. We got our own fantasy guide. So, I mean, the scouting profile content is definitely back on the agenda for Elite Prospects. But what we're known for is obviously the database.
And as you said, over 1 million registered players, over 300,000 members, 20,000 something paid subscribers, I read. So yep. It starts to, and through advertisers, so it starts to generate revenue as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously with that growth, comes financial growth. And when we launched EP Premium back in 2018, we knew that we had a strong category of fans that would be willing to pay for a subscription service. So we added more features, a lot of them targeting hockey fans, basically, such as, bookmarking players, advanced stats filters, advanced search options, things like that. But it really took off when we started adding features for active players, like the EP Verified. And so now I would say over half of our subscribers are active players or parents appreciating the value of looking good online to further your hockey career, basically. So the dynamics for Elite Prospects have changed a little bit, but obviously with 20,000 plus paying subscribers and 1.5 million unique visitors a week, it's quite the product financially right now. It's a big part of the Everysport Media Group portfolio as of right now.
Exactly, because Everysport Media Group is interesting as, can you call it an umbrella company, I guess? And because they have also in paddle, they have in some horse riding, and now, of course, hockey.
We're basically rooted in, well, a few different areas, I would say, as a content provider and a publisher. Obviously, our horse racing division started as a content provider for ATG, and we have recently sold Hockey Sverige, Fotboll Direkt, and a couple of other websites. That was, the main component of our publisher portfolio. So I guess now another foundation for Everysport Media Group is sports data. We have been putting together sports results and sports standings for Swedish newspapers for the past at least 15 years. So that's another key component of Elite Prospects as well. So sports data, I will say right now, is taking over from publishing as the number one driver for business in Everysport Media Group. But yes, it is an umbrella company. We work across many different sports. We have many different products, business to business, business to consumer. So
yeah. How much is Elite Prospect in, like, how big part does it play in Everysport Media Group?
Well, over the last year, Elite Prospects represented nearly a third of the revenue in Everysport Media Group. So, and it has grown exponentially since I left for the US back in 2018, and it has grown by about 1,000% since the revenue, almost 800 to 900%. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But also, obviously, we're reinvesting just about everything back into the website. I mean, Elite Prospects we have built a brand new API. We are working on a brand new deployment to run a new technical backbone to run all our website. We've kept expanding on features, and we have invented a lot in our content strategy. So the good news is, while we are organically profitable, we reinvest just about everything back into making the platform better, because we are nowhere done yet. That's for sure.
I heard some rumors today in the office about a new app coming. Is that something you can confirm?
Yeah, there's. I can't really confirm anything at this point. Elite Prospects is a very complex database. It entails so much information. It has so many features, so much to pack on just one screen view. So it is a difficult project for an app, but we are definitely looking to get an app done. But there are some things that needs to be taken care of first. So you probably shouldn't expect it in 2024, but it's definitely on my priority list to make sure that we get an app at some point. We did have one a few years back, but had to discontinue it. And we really want to get an app out there sooner than later.
So in your role as president, what are you responsible for? How's the day-to-day if we focus on the Elite Prospect now?
Well, recently we put a lot more management efforts into Elite Prospects. Obviously, with Elite Prospects becoming a more significant part of the company, we have expanded our marketing division over in Stockholm has grown by a lot this year. So my leadership role for several years, I was the one calling the shots, basically. Now it's more of a management group running Elite Prospects with, we have a product development manager, we have a database manager, we have a marketing manager, and we have our group CEO in Stockholm being much more involved with Elite Prospects right now. But for many years, I was basically spearheading all the business development efforts at Elite Prospects by myself. As of right now, since I'm in North America, I obviously manage all our North American staff. It's a lot of work with the financial aspects, monthly reporting, and just keeping track of invoices and whatnot, hiring staff, payroll, all that. But primarily, I am working to expand Elite Prospects in the active player community right now. I am very much involved with the event side of Elite Prospects, which we started a couple of years ago to get an online brand out to the rinks and get the brand in front of actual hockey players on a daily basis. So this year, we're putting on 4 major tournament events, what we call the Elite Prospects Cup Series. It's a AAA event for players aged 14 to 18. And we're also planning for the 3rd year of our Elite Prospects Invitational, which is kind of like a TV-pucken in North America, a smaller version of TV-pucken, where this year we will have some of the best 2008-born players compete over 3 days at a showcase event that we're putting together. So that is what occupies a lot of my time right now. I'm also behind a lot of the content we put out. So I'm working closely with my editor-in-chief, JD Burke, and other contributors to make sure that our editorial content is world-class at all times.
Interesting. And you're also involved as an official partner at the World Juniors in Gothenburg. Here is my hometown this year in a couple of days only.
Yes. So we are the career partner of the 2024 World Junior Championships. It's not the first time we've sponsored a tournament like this. We did the U18s in Dallas a couple of years ago. But obviously with the World Juniors now returning for the first time in about, I think, 10 years to Sweden, we saw this as a good opportunity to really showcase what Elite Prospects is and what strong of a brand we have become in hockey circles. So we are one of the sponsors at the tournament, and we are the official career partner of the Swedish Hockey Federation for this tournament.
So what would you like to get out of this partnership the most? Is it awareness? Is it the more registered players? What is the goal with this partnership?
It's a combination of many things. Obviously, for us, being on the boards at Scandinavium and Frölunda for the tournament is big because, brand recognition. Elite Prospects is a very, very well-known brand, definitely among Swedish hockey supporters. But there are still places in North America where we can get much, much higher awareness. So we haven't really become a household name in North America as we have been in Sweden for many years. So there's still a lot to do in terms of just getting our brand out there, but also as a way to showcase many of the new features that we have that are sort of career oriented. If you look good on Elite Prospects, you will help your hockey career. And that's sort of the message that we want to get through in the World Juniors. The audience for us is perfect because there's a lot of young hockey players watching the tournament. There's a lot of parents up there in the stands for the games and obviously in front of the TVs. So while also hoping to convert, we're going to be launching some subscription campaigns alongside our World Junior project. So it's a combination of many different marketing activations for sure. We will be at Scandinavium handing out hats and souvenirs. And so you can actually go to Scandinavium and meet with Elite Prospects. And I'm working right now to get a scale and a measuring tape in there. So if we have any hockey playing kids that want to come and get their height and weight right for their Elite Prospects profile, just go to the Elite Prospects booth at Scandinavium and get your height and weight correct.
That's a good one. Also, do you have a photo booth? Because that's they need to take new headshots, or maybe you want from the ice live pictures.
We are looking into doing that as well. Yes, we'd prefer on ice pictures, but a headshot will do too. So no, it will be fun. I mean, it's the World Juniors it's usually around that time of year we see our peak traffic. And this is where Elite Prospects really stands out because no other outlet really has all the data on all these players that we have. So
true. How often do you get the question, can you fix my stats in Elite Prospect?
All the time. Obviously now being the father of a hockey player and also coaching, I'm coaching travel hockey, I'm coaching high school hockey over here. So yes, I do get that question a lot. And I also get it all over the place. It's not just young hockey players. It's, I run into a guy at a bar who has played hockey. He's like, you're missing a season that I played in Canada in 1998. Can you fix that? So there's been a lot of that and it's great. That's exactly what I want. So,
yeah, it's funny. And also, I mean, it means that they're invested, right? They're using the product. So it's a good sign.
Yeah, definitely.
Before leaving the World Juniors, what's your predictions for this year? Who's taking home the gold?
Well, the world it's always a very difficult tournament to predict. Obviously, there are some star players that could have been playing for US and Canada, but are already lighting it up in the NHL. But that goes for Sweden too. I mean, Leo Carlsson could have played in the tournament. No way they will let him play it. But given the setup right now, I actually think the Swedish team is in a pretty good position to play the tournament on home ice. I think will help because the boost will be massive from local fans. I'm still a bit bummed that we didn't win in Malmö back in 2014 when we lost to Finland. That was tough. So I think this is the year for Sweden. To be honest, that's going to be my number one bet.
Does it have anything to do with the ice size as well? Playing on big size?
A little bit, yeah. But Team USA and Team Canada, they've proven that they can win on the larger ice surface as well, obviously. So, but yeah, I mean, I think this is definitely a good year. 2004s and 2005, some really good hockey players coming out of Sweden from these age groups and a unique home ice advantage. So yeah, that's my prediction.
Let's see. Let's talk about you and your career and how you started. In the intro, I mentioned that when you said also you're from Rydaholm, a small town in Sweden. So how did you get into sports in the first place? And as we said, you worked in insurance. So a little bit your career journey up until today.
I was actually a much better golfer than I was a hockey player. So I studied marketing and communications and finance in Växjö, went to the university there. And after a couple of years, I got really bored, took on an opportunity to go and move to Spain to work for Ving Golf as a tour guide for golf travel. while also trying to work on my golf game. So at that age, 19, 20, I still thought I'd be able to make it among the pros. So I'd say my prime passion there was golf, and that took me across the world. And I never made it back to the university, to be honest, because it landed so many good connections that I ended up with a job working the Danish and Dutch markets for a management consultant company called Universum, an employer branding research company. So that was my college dropout. Basically, I started there in 2002. I built up the Danish market. I built up the Dutch market. And eventually, after a couple of years, I moved to the United States and worked over there for about a year, building up our market in California and state of Washington. So I was traveling a lot, working in management consulting, but somehow ended up back in Sweden in 2006 when one of my former bosses asked me to get on board with one of the startups he was working on. And that got me into recruitment and staffing, which was, it was new to me, but it was also something I had been near doing employer branding consulting for many years. We built that company from scratch to over 100 million in turnover in about 4 or 5 years. So that was a really interesting journey. And I stayed with that company until 2011 when I got hired by Everysport Media Group. So I've only had like 3 proper jobs in the past 20 years, and I've been doing this now for about 12. So,
but still seen a lot of the world in only 3 jobs.
Definitely, yeah. It was definitely interesting. Working in sports, it had always been a dream job for me. I always saw myself, as a young kid, I saw myself working for like the PGA Tour or the NHL or an NHL team. But I always had that, I was working as a reporter, local news reporter when I was 16, 17. I was always a pretty talented writer. So that's what got me back into media, back into sports media. And I will say that, if anything, it's my passion for really good content and really good sports journalism. That's what got me on board with Elite Prospects. And that is something I still carry to this day, the passion for really good media production.
Interesting. So you said now that you live in the States, you live in Tampa. So what are the biggest differences considering like working in the States versus when you worked in Sweden?
It's a difficult question to answer. What makes Elite Prospects very different from any other company, I think, or not any other company, but most other companies, is that everyone working at Elite Prospects is super passionate about hockey. We are all basically living our dream. So I don't think there's a good comparison to be made, really, because, with my staff, I don't ever have to doubt that they are working, because everyone loves this so much that we are basically living and breathing Elite Prospects 24/7. But obviously, a lot of things are different. One thing that's really different is the makeup of youth hockey in North America versus Sweden. I mean, everything in youth hockey is just different here. It is so much more expensive. It is so much more competitive. There is so much less patience. Everybody is a lot more, focusing on their individual growth than their success as a team in general, I'd say. So that is definitely different. And the economics behind youth sports in America is just so different. I mean, over here, it's not rare for parents to spend at least $15,000 a year for their kid to play hockey. And of course, in Sweden, that's just, unheard of. So,
yeah, that's a big difference. And also I heard from friends and colleagues being over at the States. One colleague in particular was seeing a practice, and there was one kid who had a different color on the jersey. And then in Sweden, that means maybe you have been injured and you shouldn't body check this guy. But in this case, it was like the guy with the poorest performance from the day before or something like that. They really highlight that. So you don't want to be the guy in the, let's say, yellow shirt or, that wouldn't fly in Sweden as well, I feel.
No, I mean, it's definitely a little different, but it's also similar. I mean, I think USA Hockey is doing a really, really good job with talent development. I mean, us Swedes were known to be tooting our own horn a lot. But to be honest, I mean, the development of hockey players coming out of the United States right now is just crazy. I mean, if you look at the best on best, if there would be an Olympic tournament played next week, I think Team USA would be a better team than Team Canada, to be honest. That's how good the US have been over the past 10, 15 years in churning out prime hockey players. So there's a lot of good going on in the system. It's just very different from what we're used to in Sweden. But if anything, Sweden is going more in that direction as well. So,
and life in general, I've heard in different interviews they speak that you feel very at home in the American culture.
Yeah, I guess I was born in the wrong country, I guess. I mean, the US is always, it's always felt like home to me ever since I first came here when I was like 10 years old. I was like, this is where I should live. And that was always, I moved here when I was 25. I thought I was never going to come back. I thought that was it. But, for whatever reason, life had other plans for me. But now I'm back. And this is where I feel at home. My kids feel very much at home here now. They even struggle to speak Swedish at home sometimes. Definitely. So my daughter, who's 11, she doesn't like to speak Swedish anymore at all. And they were, born and bred in Sweden. But so, I mean, for me, this is home. No doubt about that.
I also heard that you wanted to be a Marine when you were around 18 years old.
Yeah. Jagger.
Oh, yeah. Is that not Marine?
Well, I guess you would say I'm not really sure, but I guess it's the Marines. Yeah. Yeah. So I went to the men's thing, the draft or whatever you call it, looking to do that. And I passed all the requirements physically and everything. So that was all good. And that's what all the cool boys would do back then, right? That was how you did your military service. And I wanted to do that, but turns out I didn't hear very well. So I was actually put in the reserve and couldn't do my military service at all because I had a 10% hearing loss on my left ear, probably from getting checked to the head while playing hockey. So my military career never took off. Probably a good thing because I probably would have stayed there. I don't know, but no military career for me. And now I guess it's too late.
Yeah. And there was the hearing deficiency was nothing you have noticed before?
Not really. It was just like ultra high frequencies that I couldn't hear. My wife says that I can't hear shit anyway. So I don't know. Maybe it's still ongoing, but it's not something that affects me on a daily basis, really.
Maybe you have selective hearing.
Selective hearing, definitely, but that is more so. It's a conscious decision, not so a deficiency.
As we talked about, you have done a lot of things in your career, and you seem to be more of a generalist than a specialist. Someone said that you're multi-talented, you're an entrepreneur, you're a hunter, you're a troubadour, you're a travel guide, a chef, car enthusiast, obviously a hockey fan and working in hockey. So would you also say that you're more a generalist than a specialist?
Yeah, I guess you could say I can do a lot of things decently, but I'm not really good at anything. No, I guess you can say that. I've always had a hunger for trying new things, honing my skills. All these things you mentioned are still like big hobbies of mine. I love hunting. Of course, I don't do much of it now in Florida. Unfortunately, that's the one thing I miss about living in Sweden, just being out in the woods and just not talking to anyone for hours. I love cooking. I love building stuff. I'm actually a decent carpenter, I guess you can say. So I just like to, whenever people tell me I'm not good at something, that's when I want to try that. Like when I was a kid, people always said, man, you can't sing. Your singing voice is horrible. And I had no ear for music. So I decided to learn how to play the guitar. And now I can at least get by. And, I've played some gigs in front of people. So I can play and sing the guitar better than most people now. So yeah, a generalist, I guess that's the word for it for sure.
Is that a trait that you would say that you have, that you don't, if someone tells you can't do it, you need to prove them wrong?
Yeah. It's one of it's definitely strong in me, that feeling of, oh, you telling me I can't do that? Well, give me 6 months and we'll talk.
Does that happen a lot in business as well? That you see someone says that a project can't be done, or this app can't become reality, or this project or this, and then you want to prove them wrong?
Yeah, I mean, I'm an optimist rather than a realist most of the time. So as far as I'm concerned, everything is doable if you put the effort and the talent into it. So yeah, no, I don't like the word no.
I see. I mean, this must come in handy also for Everysport media group, considering that they have a wider range. It's not only hockey, as we spoke about before. It's golf, it's horse riding, and so forth. So having this opportunity to do many things well instead of doing one thing excellent must come in very handy for you.
Yeah, I mean, of course, now the last 6 years, I've only been doing elite prospects, basically. But yeah, I mean, and that's something I pride myself in from a career standpoint. I'm not afraid to dig in. Like if we're moving to a new office, I will be driving the truck and I will be carrying the boxes and I will hang the paintings if I have to, right? And I can help out with business development. I can run the finances if I have to. So having that multi-skill approach, I think, has been very good for me, working primarily in small companies as I have been doing throughout my career. That's where I like to be.
Leading from the front, that's what I hear from that also.
Exactly.
How would you describe your leadership style?
Well, it requires a lot of passion. I'm probably not a very good leader in a group where people aren't passionate about what they're doing. I'm probably not one of those guys to straighten up a dysfunctional sales team by being military-like and just hard and tough. That's not me. I work better when everyone is working towards the same goal just by default, and I can help optimize basically the talent and skills within each organization. I'd say that's my identifying talent and let everybody shine doing what they love. That's the basis for my leadership, I would say.
Interesting. I think that's more of a modern leadership. This more hierarchical leadership, I think, might be. Of course, it still exists, but it might be a little bit more in the past.
Yeah, and it works in the context of elite prospects, as I said, because everyone is as passionate as I am about this product. It might not work if we were selling office supplies or Dunder Mifflin Paper Company. I probably would not be a very good leader at a company like that. So, but I've been fortunate throughout my career to work in either really interesting startups with really good people or working with really interesting and unique products like the Universum Research or now Elite Prospects. So I haven't had to deal with that yet. I could probably not sell something I didn't believe in.
I get that. Maybe your leadership style would be different if you would have become a Marine there a couple of years ago.
It could certainly have been useful for me, definitely. And I would also be much better at making my own bed. So,
okay. That's one of the things that you don't listen to when your wife tells you?
Yep. I'd say I'm domestically challenged for all my cooking skills and building skills. I don't see mess and dirt around the house. I'm so focused usually on working that I don't really pay much attention to that. I forget to walk the dog. I sometimes leave my dog in the car. That's happened a couple of times these last couple of months. I forget to pick up the kids. But hey, do what you love and never work another day in your life.
That's what they say. So a couple of, call them fun facts that I found doing some research.
You've really done your research here. I really got to say, this is impressive.
Thank you. I pride myself on that. Try to, find as much as I can. So during the hurricane in Florida, September 2022, obviously like a tough time and the people were afraid and scared. But you went out and bought some essentials that you needed for the house, and two of them being beer and snooze. I found that very funny. That was the thing that you went for, like among the first things.
Well, that's the list. I couldn't live a day without my snooze. And if I'm going to get stuck at home for, several days or up to a week, I definitely need to have some beer there to take the boredom out of it. Imagine being in a house in Florida where it's 38 degrees Celsius. There's no power. Kids are annoyed. There's no iPads working, no TV, no radio, no nothing. Snooze and beer, that was definitely high up on my supply list, along with toilet paper, water, and canned foods. So
that's the 5 things for survival.
Yeah, and the snus was also the headline when I got interviewed by Radio Kronoberg for that first year we lived here. A big hurricane was supposed to hit Florida. So that was the headline. Smålänning bunkrar snus och öl på Floridas västkust. Classic.
Classic, yeah. So how do you get it? It's not sold in the States, right?
No, but you can order it.
Oh, okay.
You can order it from several outlets in Sweden. It's perfectly legal to import it to the US. So it's actually when I go to Sweden now, I actually bring snus that I've ordered to the US because it's actually cheaper here.
Yeah, yeah. Now everything is cheaper in Swedish with a weak crown, so you should buy everything from here now.
Yeah. It's been a good couple of years, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's reversed when you live here. Everything is expensive.
Yeah. We haven't seen a whole lot of Swedes over here the last couple of years. First the pandemic, and then the financial crisis, and a plummeting Swedish krona. So yeah, it's been very sparse with Swedes over here.
Indeed. Another fun fact is that although it wasn't really close in terms of distance, you were the neighbor with Mick Jagger at some point. Is that right?
Yeah, it was fairly close, I'd say. It's about 5 minutes from my house at the time. So he moved into something called the Lake Club, which is a very, very high-end community here in Lakewood Ranch. And it made big local news here when he bought that house. And I actually don't think he bought it to plan to live there much himself. I think it was actually him and his wife buying it for her parents or something like that. So I don't even know if Mick Jagger ever set foot in that house, but he certainly bought it. And then he sold it not too long ago, probably about 6 months ago. And obviously property prices down in Florida have skyrocketed about 100% in the last couple of years. So he probably made a pretty big killing on the house too. Probably bought it for like $3 million and sold it for $6 million or something.
So you never went over there for a barbecue or anything? You didn't see him?
No, not really. Not really. I like the Rolling Stones, but I'm not really a Rolling Stones super fan. So he's not one. I mean, if it was Axl Rose or Bob Dylan, I certainly would have stopped by to say hi. But no, I never saw Mick Jagger, and I'm not even sure he ever set foot in that house, but he certainly did own it for a couple of years.
So now you are the most famous person in the neighborhood again.
Yeah, and Jerry Springer died. So yeah, I guess
He lived there too?
Jerry Springer did, yeah. And Brian Johnson from the AC/DC too. So I guess it's Brian Johnson. And well, I'm definitely climbing up the list. That's the good news.
A question I always ask is, have you had any bumps on the road in your career? And if so, how did you overcome them?
I think it's all just a big bump in the road, to be honest. Every day is a big bump in the road. Well, there have been bumps in the road, certainly, where when I left Universum, there was definitely a bump in the road. I moved to the US by myself, 25 years old. It was a completely different corporate culture. I had a boss that, her way of managing things was not what I was used to, coming from 3-4 really successful years in Sweden, where I had built up my local markets really well. And all of a sudden, a completely different management style. And I had finally realized the dream of moving to the United States. And 9 months into it, I was like, I can't do this anymore. And the type of visa I was on, I couldn't switch to another job. So I ended up, moving back home. I guess you could call that a bump in the road, because my dreams didn't really pan out the way they should. But turns out I got home a couple of weeks later. I met my wife, and now I have her and 2 beautiful kids. So I guess it all happens for a reason, right? But career-wise, that was certainly a bump in the road. And with Eliteprospects, I mean, it hasn't always been as nice and fine and dandy as it is right now. I mean, Eliteprospects was a minor product in a portfolio that's definitely struggled to be profitable for many years. So my first 3-4 years with Everysport, it was a pretty tough environment, really. I mean, our products were just barely profitable. We didn't have a whole lot of resources to put into tech development. We didn't have the money to splash out on, awareness marketing. We couldn't hire always the best writers or the best people to do. So, I mean, it wasn't a bump in the road, because it was still fun. It was still very an entrepreneurial spirit going on in the company, but it was definitely tougher than it is now when Eliteprospects is such a well-known brand and a profitable brand at that. if I would get invited to the podcast, Hundoren, I definitely have some dog years to talk about.
Is that a dream podcast to be on?
Not really, but I like it because you always talk to successful people about their success. But what really interests me is the misery, because there is, for every success story, there's a certain amount of misery that goes into it as well.
No, definitely. Hence the question, everyone has some bumps in their roads, and sometimes they lead to something good. As you said, you met your wife and now you have 2 kids, but career-wise, took a turn.
Yeah. And I mean, that said, over the last 20 years, I've been blessed. I worked for 3 companies over the last 20 years, and I've enjoyed more or less every minute of it. So all in all, up until now, I have been very fortunate. And where we are now with Elite Prospects is obviously a great deal of satisfaction for me, having worked so hard to promote this brand for over a decade, to see where we are now with 23 out of 32 NHL teams using our API to power their talent management applications, seeing how big hockey people quote Elite Prospects on a daily basis. That's a great deal of satisfaction for me.
And pride, I guess.
Yeah, definitely pride, sense of accomplishment, but also, making you hungry for more, because I know we've only scratched the surface with Elite Prospects. I am thoroughly convinced that by launching the right improvements to the website over the next 2-3 years, we can double this thing again within the next 2 years. I'm totally convinced.
So what are the long-term goals? And except for, of course, you talked about increasing revenue and double that, but any other specific goals?
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, if you ask our CEO and our owners, he will have one set of goals. I mean, one goal we're setting is to get to 50,000 subscribers, which obviously it's a big task at hand. We're at 20 now, but it's certainly doable given, the plans we have for product improvement. My goals are probably not so much traditional KPIs as it is to just keep growing this platform and keep improving it, improving on our content, improving on our brand recognition. I'm not happy until every kid in North America skates around with an Elite Prospects jersey in practice.
That's a big goal.
Yeah.
I like that.
I want to get the brand recognition level of Elite Prospects up to where CCM and Bauer is in hockey. So we're definitely not there yet, but that's more so one of my goals than financial growth.
The recognition part and the brand.
Yeah, because again, that's what, when I one day leave this company, that will be my legacy, right? No one's going to look at, they're going to look at our financial growth and that we went from basically nothing to several $1 million worth of annual sales. But in the end, my legacy is the accomplishment. And that goes for Johan too. Johan, who founded the website, he's still with us. He's been doing this for almost 25 years now. I know that's what he takes a lot of pride in as well.
Of course. What is the best advice you have given or received?
Oh man, you put me on the spot there.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, I'll say the best advice I have been given is to take the time and slow down and make sure that everybody is on the same page as you. And that has taught me a lot of being a manager, managing people. I can sometimes, just go off at 180 miles an hour in one direction, leaving other people in the dust because my mind is already way ahead of where we are. And so I think that has made me way more efficient learning to make sure that everybody is on board with what we're doing. And one of my bosses told me that about 15 years ago. Peter, you need to slow down and make sure that the trailer is still connected to the truck here. If not, we're not all going to get there as a team. So that has been a good advice for me from a career standpoint. The best advice I've ever given, I think, is enjoy what you're doing. And if you don't enjoy what you're doing, do something else because, hey, life is short, right? And that's why I love working at Elite Prospects, because even if we're doing the annual budget or clearing out our accounts payable, which everybody hates to do, we're still doing it for the benefit of Elite Prospects. So we're all enjoying what we're doing. And that's the number one advice I want to give to everybody. Enjoy what you're doing. If not, quit, because it's not worth it.
Yeah, it was so funny that you said that, because I thought about that as well, that both of those advice ties up to what you said about Elite Prospect. It's you're one team, you're working together, and everyone is passionate. Everyone is enjoying what they're doing. So, I mean, that must be such an important part and one of the reasons for the success as well that Elite Prospect has had.
Yeah. It is. I mean, it's a curse and a blessing sometimes. I mean, I actually think that sometimes it would be beneficial to us to have a little bit more of new blood come in on a more frequent basis. I don't think, for as long as I've been here, 12 years, I don't know that anyone has actually ever quit. But yeah, I mean, it certainly helps, and it's the one common denominator that we have. It's a very diverse group of people working with Elite Prospects. We have all kinds of different personalities and interests and backgrounds and whatnot, but our passion for hockey is what unites us. And that is a big goal of mine, is to maintain that as we are now growing. We're hiring a lot of people that don't come from a hockey background. I need to make sure that they are as passionate about Elite Prospects as the hockey buffs that I always hire. So
we are closing in on time here, but is there something I haven't asked you yet that you want to mention?
No. I mean, your research was thoroughly impressive here. So you put me on the spot a couple of times with things I wasn't expecting that you would know about me. So I think you pretty much covered it all.
Awesome. I appreciate that. So the last question I ask everyone is, who from your network do you think would be a good future guest for this podcast?
I would say our CEO, Hannes Andersson, Everysport Media Group CEO, Hannes Andersson. I really enjoy working with him. I've been working with him now for 6-7 years. A really good leader, a strong visionary, smart guy. He's younger than me, but very experienced business leader. And he has been able to navigate Everysport Media Group through a lot of difficulties. Talking about bumps in the road, obviously, we've all read about Paddle in Sweden. Yep. And how that was a very difficult phase for our company, but we have worked ourselves through that. We're a profitable company, and Hannes has a big part in that. So it's not sucking up to the boss or anything, but I would definitely recommend you have him on the show.
That would be a great episode. Really interesting. Peter, thank you so much for taking the time to be on Sports Management Podcast.
My pleasure, Marcus. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Sports Management Podcast. Please hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes. Also, feel free to leave a comment about what you thought about this episode. If you want to get in contact with me, send an email to sportsmpodcast@gmail.com or hit me up on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram @sportsmpodcast.